Welcome back to Fire Panel 365. This is your host, Star Coates. Today, I'm going to be giving a little bit of background on the coronavirus. And I know that a lot of people are freaking out and it's making people act, in many ways. I saw a little bit of research that had been done on the coronavirus, and I wanted to share a few things. I'm going to start with the book of Matthew, Matthew 7:7-8. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be open. History and recent advances in coronavirus discovery. Human coronavirus, first characterized in the 1960s, are responsible for the substantial proportion of upper respiratory tract infections in children. So this first started out attacking kids in the 1960s. Since 2003, at least 5 new human coronaviruses have been identified, including the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, which caused significant morbidity and mortality. NL63, representing in a group of newly identified group I coronaviruses that include NL and New Haven coronavirus, has been identified worldwide. These viruses are associated with both upper and lower respiratory tract diseases and are likely common human pathogens. The global distribution of a newly identified group 2 coronavirus, HKU1, has not yet been established. Corona virology has advanced significantly in the past few years. The SARS epidemic put the animal coronaviruses in the spotlight. The background and history relative to this important and expanding research area are reviewed here, and you guys could read that for yourselves if you cannot see it that well. And that is at the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health, NCBI resources. Now, Lysol, as most people know, started in the 1800s, and most people are blaming them for the knowledge of knowing about this virus, and that was on the back of the cans. Yes, it is on the back of the can. And also Clorox has been blamed as well, and they've been around since 1913, I believe. And they just started out in Oakland, California. There's a big Clorox building there as well. But the people have been blaming them as a part of this whole thing. Now, one of the questions that was asked was, how does coronavirus get on their list of things that their product kills? And it was stated that they have to test on those subjects in order for them to be placed or listed as something that the product claims to disinfect or kill the virus or germ. So later, more information has come out that this started back in the 1960s, mid-60s, that the coronavirus was, tested on and discovered. Now, I have read personally that it started with 2 cases. Now, when I try to see, exactly where did that start, That is a thing that I did not see exactly. Now I know the 2019, we know that that one started in China, but the 1960 case or cases, that's a big question of where did even those stem from and what was happening at that time. I had saw that it was two cases and one case, well, let's say a third, because the other one was a chicken, I guess, or chickens. I'm not sure how many, but that is a very vital information. So that way people don't, be misled by everything that's going on now, what they're hearing and what they're seeing. I have also read that there are 7 different strands of the coronavirus. Um, and I don't know exactly if some of those cases were all fatal or if, but there are a few that some people did die from some of the strands, yes. Now I'm just laying some foundation um, because it's ironic that, okay, in the 1960s, it first happened. Clorox was around in 1913. Lysol was around in the 1800s. So the disinfecting companies are older than the virus itself. Um, Not to say that they've done anything in any way, shape, or form. I cannot speculate or even accuse them of being a corporate or a possible anything, that has to do with the virus itself. But I just found it ironic that they said that they didn't have any knowledge of it at first, of what was happening. And then us, of course, in 2020, actually, hearing about this 2019 incident rolling into 2020. We're under the impression that this is something new that never existed before, but that is not true. So in China, the coronavirus, of course, we know that it came from there. The people there, they eat bats as a delicacy, as well as the pangolin. Now, it has been said that the pangolin has contracted this virus due to the fact that it had eaten bat droppings, and that, which I guess in turn made it sick. Now, understanding some of the symptoms and the things that even those like myself in the medical field have to be aware of, that this virus can be spread through secretions, feces, and so on. That is something that if you ate a turd, of course, it would spread to you. So it has been said that these pangolins carry the virus. Now, just as I stated before, the people over in China, and not just in China, but in Asia as well, they eat this pangolin as a delicacy, and they sell it within their markets. So people were wondering, well, how did this spread to a person or to people? Well, because they're eating the same thing, just the same spread as from the bat droppings to the pangolin itself. If a human gets a hold of that pangolin and eats it, I'm pretty sure they would get sick. Then especially if they're not, I'm not telling nobody to eat one, but if they're not practicing hand washing and good hygiene and things like that over there, as well as cleaning their food before they cook it. And I mean, if you've seen the way that a pangolin looks, you probably wouldn't want to eat it. I know I wouldn't, and that's just my preference. But that is one of the things that I believe that we should educate ourselves on, this whole topic and where it stems from, instead of everybody just going, crazy all at one time. Also, it has been said that this coronavirus reacts like pneumonia, an upper respiratory or bronchial issues will occur. Now, they have said that they are working on a medication to give to the people, but this medication is for malaria. So that's what I read, and it is called Arlene. And then I guess you're going to find it also under hydro, hydroxy chloroquine or chloroquine or chloroquine or quin. It's very hard to pronounce, for me at least. And when you look into exactly what is inside of the medication itself, and especially those of you that are really health food nuts, and you guys are, or my natural people that really, really, or my organic people that really, really are iffy on just taking anything over the counter or taking anything that the doctor might prescribe to them. Some of those things that are in it, of course, feel free to look that up on your own if that's something that you will want to do. Just at least you'll have a heads up on what they'll be testing out on you, since they don't have a pinpoint medication yet that they want to say will help you or aid you in this, with the virus. So you'll have to take a look at that. But that was one of the things that I asked. I said, well, if people are dying from it, what exactly are they saying that they're curing them with? Because if they're going to the hospital and they're still dying, what are they giving to them? So that was a big question. But overall, I'm really trying to help a lot of people understand, okay, where has it come from? Just as I stated before, China with the bats and the pangolin and how they eat those things as a delicacy. But that's how they got passed, that's how those things pass. And then especially us eating things that, we're not supposed to be eating, that could definitely make us sick. Now, Dean Koontz, The Eyes of Darkness. This book right here had me like, oh my gosh. In 1981, yes, I said 1981, he wrote this book, and people are tripping out on him now because they're saying, well, how did he know about the virus and all this stuff? So one of his pages, it states that it says no medications and antibiotics will completely be ineffective against this fungus-like, extremely contagious disease, and its victims will be something, because someone circled in orange, until it's discovered that the bacteria can be destroyed through some combinations of electrical currents and extreme heat. And I found it ironic that I guess at 40 degrees Celsius, this virus will not be able to really function, which is 100 and approximately 3 or 4 degrees. And now that's like those of us that have, lived in really hot places, up and down California, like Fresno or Los Angeles, or even hotter places, the one I'm describing now, or Las Vegas, you know what I'm saying, during the summertime. So that heat is like, you don't even want to be outside, and 104. So anyway, in or around 2020, a severe pneumonia-like illness will spread throughout the globe, attacking the lungs and the bronchial tubes and resisting all known treatments, almost more baffling than the time that I can't read the rest because something is, circled out in the middle of it, suddenly vanish as quickly as it had arrived, and then attack again 10 years later and disappear completely. So they're saying that it will attack in 2020, and then 10 years later from 2020, some of you guys know what that is already. And that really had me going. Now, on that second page that's going to be up here, it says, to understand that, Dumi said, you have to go back 20 months. It was around then that a Chinese scientist named Li Chen defected to the United States carrying a disk-like record of China's most important and dangerous new biological weapon in a decade. They called the stuff Wuha 400 because it was developed in their RDNA labs outside of the city of Wuhan. And it was the 400th visible strand of man-made microorganisms created at that research center. Wuhan 400 is a perfect weapon. It afflicts only human beings. No other living creatures can carry it. Now, that was part of his book. But then we see that was something else now. And like syphilis, Wuhan 400 can't survive outside the living human body for longer than a minute, which means it can't permanently contaminate objects or entire places the way anthrax and other virulent microorganisms can. And when the host expires, the Wuhan 400 within him perishes a short while later. So that was really trippy for me, because I was like, well, this dude wrote this in 1981, and there's no telling what he might have heard, whom he might have known, whom he might have grew up around, because a lot of people were saying, well, that's some elite stuff that he's saying. So anyway, then this a fourth page that pops up that just says like the contents of his story. The Eyes of Darkness is a thriller novel by American writer Dean Koontz, released in 1981. And then of course it reads on. But I found that quite interesting that he even wrote about that in 1981. And someone else put, him even mentioning anthrax. And I was like, oh, Lord. And much like the coronavirus, I know he mentioned anthrax, and we thought that when anthrax came out in 2001, that was something that was new too. A little bit of background on that. It says, discovery was made by Robert Koch, a German physician and scientist, first identified the bacterium that caused the anthrax disease in 1875 in Wolszlin, now part of Poland. His pioneer work in the late 19th century was one of the first demonstrations that diseases could be caused by microbes. And then it says prevention, anthrax, antibiotics, and then so on and so on. Then, of course, that note from 9/11/01, which was a very nasty and threatening letter in 2001 that ended up with people, attacking people's mail and stuff like that, saying they were putting anthrax in the mail, and had a lot of people scared and freaked out. Now, coincidentally, that was not the first time that anthrax had ever broken out, or that they had an outbreak. In Russia, it says here, on April 1979, spores of anthrax were accidentally released from a Soviet military research facility near the city of Sverdlovsk, Russia, if I'm saying that correctly. The ensuing outbreak of the disease resulted in approximately 100 deaths, although the exact number of victims remain unknown. And then you guys know, with that whole thing that was happening here in America with it later on in 2001, we always think that there's something new, and these things are a repeat. A lot of times, people just want to get a hold of something to experiment with. And thing that I thought about earlier today was, if you've seen a person and he was the only person in the world with the ice cream, you will want to know where it came from, how he got it, what it tastes like. And knowing scientists, they are the same way. They want to know how it works. They want to know what things look like. They want to know what it smells like. So all these things that we've had come out over time, there, a lot of it, yes, it is very devastating, very sad, and that fear cripples a nation, and it doesn't matter if it's here in America or in other places, because people are going crazy left and right. And the best thing that you can do is educate yourself on what has happened and what has happened even before. And if this is something that's truly new, and maybe even see what the people did before, take some tips and some suggestions of what they did before, because, if these things already are reoccurring, what was happening with the folks before us and how did they live through it. So I hope these findings help you guys, and this was all said for educational purposes only. God bless you all, and may the Lord keep you. Thank you for tuning in to Power Panel 365.